one jumps in the water and doesn't get eaten by a polar bear, and the other ones fall in after. And so you guys, I think by just being here, are the first penguins, and the other ones are coming out. So thank you so much, and you're Mary to introduce more.
Thank you, Jules. So I want to, while we're thanking people, thank Eva and Alan for all they did in helping, particularly Alan, who endured Costco with me today, which was a lot of fun. So thank you all for coming. Did you get the Google Hangouts?
It's live. We're streaming live all over the planet.
So we are streaming. Are we recording it or
yes.
not? Yeah, and we're recording it, which I know some wanted to do that. So just a little brief word about what is Evolve Law, because we keep getting that question. So Jules and I came up with this idea last year, and it's evolving, no pun intended, but stay tuned because we are going to do some big things with it over the summer, and it's all about moving forward with technology and law and just better integration of the efforts so that all of us are pulling with our wonderful startups and further along companies such as LegalZoom and Clio. We aren't all just like a big swirling mess. So that's my goal with it. So we're going to do a quick first panel, and so introduce the panel and then they can come up. And then after that, we're going to do a brainstorming. Anything?
I guess, push it up here. Anything in particular people want to talk about, hear about?
Well, yeah, are you guys based? Where are you based?
Oh, it depends. So, I spent a long time on a plane. My company, Esquire, I'm based in New York, and this was there with the San Francisco office and our engineering teams in Pittsburgh. Mary's based in Phoenix, but is probably never there. I see her everywhere around the country. I think legal tech is blossoming in the U.S., so we are law as an organization, which is not officially an organization yet. It will be by the summer. We are where we are.
And we're including Canada. I'm Canadian. Cleo presented here today. We talked with Ryerson, who are interested in hosting an Evolve Law in Toronto. Didn't tell you about that yet. So it doesn't really matter. Most of us are SaaS-based companies, and so it doesn't matter where we are. But Phoenix to LA is a very short trip, 55 minutes door to door.
In the legal industry, as you guys know, is certain hubs, and if change happens in those hubs, the rest of the world as the country follows. So we're trying to make an impact in the largest legal markets, and therefore
Move the industry forward in the way that every other industry is moving forward, by using technology to become more efficient and enable better practice. So that's the goal.
Okay, so our first panel, some of this is redundant. So I founded a company called Traklight. We do basically a self-guided process for companies to assess their business risk and their IP, but for attorneys, it automates their intake process, generates more revenue, makes it completely scalable, and allows them to practice law. And so I will be joined the moderator, so that's probably the most you'll hear from me on this. And then I'm joined by Jules, who's the founder of Hire and Esquire, which is, as long as you promise to stay with me.
Yeah, so we're a legal labor marketplace. We automate things like that a staffing firm would do, but also things that an Elance would do, but for lawyers. So we're matching law firms with and in-house legal departments with flexible attorneys on demand. And we're just launching our firm replacement service this month. Also, attorneys would work.
Put a little TM on it.
That's the risk.
Google it first. Okay, so I'm going to be joined by the three people sitting in the front here. First, Ned. So Ned is from eBrevia. Did I say it right? Come on up. Whose software is based on artificial intelligence technology. It was developed at Columbia University, and it helps analyze and summarize contracts. And Ned and I have known each other for almost 3 years. He was the first person I met with in legal tech. He was at Demo 12, and I was super excited to see someone else in the legal space. So, and then two new friends here. So we have Sally, who runs LegalZoom's Attorney Services Department, which works with over 1,000 attorneys nationwide. And prior to LegalZoom, Sally was GC at a large international tech company, which apparently is a mystery, and after she worked at a variety of different size firms.
No, it's a company called Tiger Spike, so primarily in the UK.
Okay, and then we have Joshua, who's Cleo's lawyer in residence. He didn't send me his 140 character thing, so that's all I'm saying about Joshua.
I was on a plane, sorry.
Okay, so the first question for our panel, and I will hand it off to Ned. So is this required so that people can hear us over the, yeah, okay. So can you tell us one lesson that you learned selling into legal or supporting legal tech?
Yeah, so I think for what we do, really domain expertise has been pretty important. Really the impetus behind the brevity of an entrepreneur feeling the pain themselves and conducting due diligence and looking for some ways to make the process more accurate and efficient. And I think that just having done the work and really walked in our customer's shoes has given us some credibility, helped us to anticipate their needs. It's to get pushback on different issues, we can kind of come at it from the perspective of having been there. So that's been helpful. Yeah, that's what I'd say is the biggest lesson.
So we'll just pass it on now.
So what I've learned is that there is no secret. So the first thing is selling to lawyers is hard. And the second is there is no secret or shortcut or magic bullet. Lawyers tend to be very risk adverse, as I'm sure many of you are aware, and they don't like technology. So when we started 4 years ago, we didn't use a computer. They would dictate to their secretary, and we're like, we're here to sell you a SaaS product. And that didn't work so well. I think what we learned is just kind of continually beating down the door, continually brand and getting to the point where they've heard of us and they know we're not going away. Actually helping their clients, or sorry, not their clients, their peers. That is the biggest lesson. So we just keep at it. Our sales cycle was 12 months to start, and now it's about 3-ish. But it's long and it's hard, and you just have to kind of hang in there.
Sort of to build on what Jules was saying, I view it from a slightly different perspective because we're not actually selling anything. We're trying to develop tools to help lawyers. And even then, I mean, the reticence towards it is astounding. I would say, though, that I've seen more shift in the last 18 months than ever before, and the tides are definitely turning. And even some unlikely places, a few of the attorneys that we work with have been practicing for 40 years. And there are some more tech-savvy people that we actually do work with. So I don't think it's necessarily, I mean, obviously it's easier with the younger crowd, but it's not, it just takes time. It really does.
All the guys that don't use computers are dying or retiring.
Yeah.
I'll live them all. So Clio makes a platform for law firms and law departments to manage their cases, their contacts, their communications. So we sell directly to lawyers. So a little different than some of the people, well, just Sally up here. Yeah. And I agree with everything that these guys have said, but there are a couple of key things that you also have to keep in mind when selling to lawyers or law departments, and that's word of mouth is huge in the legal space. BTI, their Mad Clientist. How many people read that blog? Nope. Oh, one in the back. Okay, so here's a note to take. BTI has a great blog on business development for law firms. Really fun to read, and as the name kind of suggests, it kind of looks at it from a client point of view. One of the stats they throw around is about 63% of companies that change law firms tend to do so on the recommendation of another colleague that they see in another company. So they're out playing golf, or they're down at the playground watching their kids. They talk about law firms together. And it's that word of mouth that really drives a company to switch law firms. It's weird. And we're seeing the exact same thing with the lawyers that we work with. So if we do a good job for one law firm and they like our software, they will recommend us to other companies out there. So word of mouth is the driving force in legal sales.
Well, thanks, Josh. And I would just add, I had a really interesting conversation with one of the people who's very early on, and he said, instead of just trying the top-down approach, try the bottom-up approach with legal, and find some raving fans who are associates, or maybe for us anyways, in the marketing department, because that might be a good place to start. And so perseverance and persistence is the way to succeed. So it's a big test in there. So this is a little bit of a prelude to the second panel, which is going to talk about some of the challenges and problems for in-house. But what do you think is the top problem to solve right now in the legal space?
So I think one of the, and I don't know if it's isolated just to tech, but one of the top problems to solve generally is just, I think a lot of the tasks don't necessarily require their level of expertise. And I think some of that can be addressed through technology, whether it's on client intake with IP or
Just for example.
yeah, as an example, a random example. Yeah, or with what Jules is doing with kind of different business models, looking to outside resources. So I just think addressing that problem is an important one, and technology can be an important part of that.
So I think the biggest technical challenge is making technology not seem like technology to law firms, because they get a little scared of new technology. An automobile, but we're selling a faster course. We're just like the legal we work with, but we're better, faster, cheaper, and you don't have to worry about this thing behind the curtain that's enabling that you can log into if you want, but you don't have to. So I think that for us, there's all sorts of things happening. Nothing is honestly rocket science. It's nothing that hasn't happened in other industries before. It's just about packaging it the right way for especially the big law firms to understand and want to do, and making it, we're going to save you time, we're going to save you money, we're going to make you more efficient. That's what works, but the technology is there, but not too scary.
So part of my job is working with lots of different firms from all over the country, and it will range from solo in Alaska to a fairly large firm in Virginia. And you can imagine with that many different lawyers, our systems have to be pretty intuitive. And that is the biggest thing, I would say, especially when it comes to dealing with lawyers, because they're all such busy people. They need something that's going to be straightforward and simple and easy to use. Again, it's amazing how many bells and whistles we've got on our sort of back-end system that they need. And would help them so much if they just took the 5 minutes. I mean, I know we all know we don't need to read the instruction manual, but really digging in and what's available there. I know from my experience as general counsel, I was tasked with the impossible job of shaving our legal budget in half, and I did it. And I was very creative about it, not only using different types of firms. We were using DLA, which wasn't cheap, and we switched from that to boutiques. But I also found different legal sort of tech aspects to really help. And I'll be perfectly honest, I used LegalZoom before, and people thought I was absolutely crazy. I just did not have the time or the money, and I was looking for any solution. And it is out there, and they are developing. And I think the biggest thing is just don't be scared to sort of try something out, because even if you test it for 3 months, you'll be amazed. But actually do the demo, do everything else, because I think a lot of people make assumptions about what software can and cannot do.
So is the question aimed at in-house legal tech or just legal tech in general?
Anything you want.
All right. So problem number one, oh crap, I started with one. Now I have to have two. Is for in-house, it's the only part of a company nowadays that is pulling more people in rather than outsourcing. You look at every other aspect of a corporation, outsourcing as fast as they possibly can. And legal departments aren't. They're in-housing. That's the phrase. It's really crazy. And so because the outside costs are so huge that they can't justify it anymore against the budget. Sally was talking about having to cut the budget in half, right? So legal tech needs to show value in order for a law firm or an in-house. then the 5 minutes it takes to do the demo or to watch the YouTube video isn't going to happen. So problem number one, value. Problem number two is ease of use. Because quite frankly, how many people here are lawyers? Look, I went to law school, I will call people out. And how many people took a computer class? Oh, wow. Okay, a self-selecting crowd for that. Whoops, yeah. I did not in law school. And so there's a lot of software that I've had to pick up really on the fly. I was working with a legal technology company and being able to explain it adequately to lawyers. So it has to be simple out of the gate. So value and simplicity have to be combined. That's my answer.
All right, so we are going to do just one quick final tip. So the idea of a quick final tip is, first of all, it's singular. Just kidding, Joshua. But seriously, if you could just give one, how can they improve their sales in the legal space?
So I think this is something Jules say, just persistence is key. It can be a long sales cycle. There's multiple touch points, and just following up and being persistent is very important.
I would say it's don't have an ego. The best sales are when you get rejected 8 times and then someone comes to you 3 months later like, oh, I thought about doing something and I found your site on Google. And they're like, see it in their head and they reject you and it's horrible, but they don't remember. You remember, get over it. And then when they come to you and said, I have this idea, we think we should use you, like, oh, that's such a great idea. I really was so glad that you discovered that on your own.
And again, I'm not really the sales necessarily, but don't be scared to try new things. You never know. Most of the legal tech solutions that are out there are actually a lot more affordable than they used to be. And just give it a shot. You'll be pleasantly surprised, I think, with most of them. And a lot of them have trial periods that you can work with.
So ask for feedback from your clients and then act on it. And that simple step will turn them into raving advocates for you, and they will go out and get you business. That's my tip.
Okay, and my tip, based on a meeting that I had in the past 48 hours, is if you kind of expect nothing and start ignoring people, they actually will all of a sudden be interested. So it's not like playing hard to get on purpose. It was just like, oh, really? So I'm going to sit in the room and you're going to ask me how much this is, and then you're going to ask me for a proposal, and I just thought I was here doing yet another demo. So sometimes you just have to set your expectations lower. Okay, well, that's it for our panel. We can do a few minutes of, if anyone has any questions for anyone on the panel, just, it's a small enough group here, so just go ahead.
So when you're trying to sell to large law firms, does anybody ask you the ROI question? And if so, how do you answer?
No.
They don't ask the ROI.
Because it's lawyers.
Yeah, for the most part, say 80 to 20.
You obviously include that, and you need to know that. But every once in a while, we'll talk to a chief operating officer or someone in the finance group, and we will ask that. But for the most part,
So we're all pointing up here.
Talking about touch points. You're approaching a firm, never reached out to them before. Who's your first touch point going to be? Is it going to be the office admin? Is it going to be one of the named partners, or you're going to try the bottom?
Yeah, so we found it really varies. I'd say about probably half the time we go into a partner, the other half we go into knowledge management. So it's often just who we happen to connect with at a networking event, as personal contacts. We've had both reach out to us over our website. I think ultimately the paths converge, so you need buy-in from both sides as well as from. But really the entry point can vary.
Shortest route on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually going to be part of my follow-up. As far as reaching out to them, are you cold calling? Are you trying to schedule an in-person visit? Is that the commitment you're trying to get out from the initial contact? Or are you going through LinkedIn? And if so, what is the next step from LinkedIn? Is it a visit or scheduling?
Yeah, we've actually never cold called. Yeah, it's usually, right now, we're still a fairly small company, so it's just been kind of engine intake that comes in over our website, or someone will say, hey, this is interesting to a friend. So far, all of our leads have come from those sources.
And we actually have something called the Legal Tech Toolkit, which right now it's part of Evolve Law. Right now it sits on the Traklight website, just because it doesn't have a home, because we don't have the Evolve Law website yet. But what we do there is put, and anyone who has a legal technology company, just shoot me an email. And we put all the information there for the companies. And I've just found that if you collaborate, we're integration partners with Clio. So we did a sales training effort with Clio, and helping each other sell each other's products is really a powerful way of doing it. So I don't do cold calling.
So a quick note on cold calls, because we did a 3-month experiment with cold calls. We had everyone, including me and my other 2 co-founders, our CTO, do cold calls and sit in the room with our salespeople and said, I know it sucks, if we're gonna do it, we'll do it too. And it sucked. It didn't get much business, but we had a couple bits of business, and one of them was Juetten, and they're one of our biggest clients now. So I guess with cold calling, it sucks. The ratio is bad, the hit rate's bad, but it does work. It's not great, and I don't think it was a good use, so we scaled it down pretty significantly and focused on the things that worked. But in terms of actual selling, I think in-person connection for the first time is probably the best. So I literally stalk people. If I don't meet someone, I look at their social media, I do that. Like, I know that sounds creepy, but that's what, like, I go to every law firm event, even if I'm not interested in the topic, because you know there'll be 20 lawyers hovering around trying to sell to you, and then you flip it around and try to sell them, which is really fun. And then once you make that one connection, you leverage that as much as you can. So we tend to have to triangulate and have multiple points of contact in one firm. So we say, oh, we were just talking to your friend over there, and like it might have been a 5-second conversation, but if you can name drop and say like, we just talked to your buddy, and like, we were in the office, and it just kind of that's what works. And so we triangulate and zoom in. I guess the one funny thing also is if you fuck up, it doesn't matter, because most law firms are fight them. They'll just try with another one. It's all good.
If you were launching a product today, coming out, but perhaps you didn't know then, what would be a great source for a community of lawyers online? Across the board, or someplace where there's an active turnover of attorneys that you would go through the time to make the appearance and just sustain some sort of presence for your new product that you have the challenge of launching.
ClioCon.
You
didn't even have to pay me for that.
We hold a conference in October. It's the 19th and 20th this year in Chicago. There are going to be 700 lawyers there. And they all talk to each other, and it becomes a great kind of knowledge sharing environment and take out all of their different environments. So it's really become a sustaining platform, not just for us, but for people who attend, like Sally did mention.
And to go back to your point, how do you open up that door? I've tried everything from cold calls to like people that I've worked with in the past, and it's amazing how many obstacles you will face. Persistence is key. And then, interesting sources. I mean, there's things like Counsel, there's estate planning, and those are actually becoming a lot more active. And you go on and say ABA, and they've got various LinkedIn groups now, depending on subject matter as well as size, all these different areas. Some are good, some are not. It's really just a case of trying them out and seeing what works.
So were you talking about an online
I was
platform?
talking about an online platform, though I really appreciate it. If any other, specifically online, that's where my head is at. So,
Are you thinking of developing one? Is that your question?
No. Just to identify where, this is more of a new topic for me, and I'm at that early sketch stage where I'm just writing down ideas, and I would like to think that I can get advice from people that have probably gone through plenty of lousy places and have come up with spots that they find productive.
So what's your market segment?
The trial attorneys,
Okay.
people that regularly make court appearances.
Aboda is good.
Where? Sorry?
Aboda, if you're looking at LA specifically, there's the LA County Bar Association of Trial Attorneys. That's going to see an online presence. Yeah. These attorneys, they don't really have time. So a lot of it is still done
person, and to be honest, it's going to stay that way. So change it. Let's go.
So also take a look at ABA's mailing list solo sets. If you can get a couple of advocates on there, that goes a long way. LinkedIn, 95% of lawyers are on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so take a look at groups that, again, focus on your specific target market there. So,
And don't forget our legal tech group that 1-400
yeah,
started together.
to find your group.
We're going to take the last question before we switch it over.
I was actually wondering how many, do you get a lot of clients because maybe Counsel has pressured them to start adopting technology?
Speaking as former GC, but because I was going through those bills going, I'm not paying for that, I'm not paying for that. You're kidding me, you're charging me for 3 hours for a simple employment. No way, so yes, any way that you can see automation, and some of my friends who are GCs of companies way bigger than what I was dealing with, they now mandate it because they're under such pressure.
Mm-hmm.
They've got more work, they've got less people, and they've got to look at ways to improve scale and cost.
Yes, that's like the magic, right? If you can get an in-house GC to say, you need to use this technology, the law firms and the lawyers that service them, it's a lot harder than you would expect. But it is like, that is the way things move. We've spent now like 3 months getting on AIG vendors. It was horribly painful, but now it's awesome. So I think that it's just like, it's one of these things that, yes, that's the way to move it, but you can't just do that because that's so much time. But yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you all for your questions, and we're going to turn it over to Amy and Roberto. Sorry.
So I guess my first question is, how many
Oh yes, hi, my name is Amy. I'm general counsel at Patch of Land, which is located out on the west side. We do real estate crowdfunding, and I'm also founder and organizer of the LA Legal Hackers meetup.
And I'm Roberto Facundas. I'm the GC at a company called Tongle on the west side. We crowdsource online videos and advertising for companies like LegalZoom, as a matter of fact. And we've done 70% of Lego's YouTube channel, had a Super Bowl commercial, and numerous other clients. But being in LA helps with all the video production people, and I already know there's at least one in the audience tonight. So I think our brainstorming session is intended to perhaps spark ideas for people like the gentleman in the purple shirt, and see where maybe there's gaps in legal tech solutions that all of you could use.
I have a quick question. How many people in the audience are in-house? Okay, all right. How many people are in private practice? Okay. Law startups? How many are not attorneys? Cool. For the non-attorneys, what do you guys do? Sorry? Oh.
Yeah, I'm a e-discovery project manager.
Cool. Okay. All right. That helps us to things a bit.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think there's an obvious question, but maybe we'll save that to things and see. I've got kind of a self-serving question. I'm actually curious what legal tech solutions people are currently using in the audience, to the extent there's maybe things that I'm not aware of, and maybe there's obvious gaps. Anybody want to shout out companies? I'll start with Esquire. As one. Clio. LegalZoom. All right, so those are the layups.
Dropbox.
Yeah. Okay.
I know somebody.
Dropbox.
LiveNote.
Evernote and LiveNote.
Relativity.
Hold on. Let's start done over here. Relativity.
Concordance.
Concordance.
Yeah.
BCIT. BCIT.
BCIT, I don't even know that one.
How do you spell that?
BCIT.
And what do they do?
BCITA?
Generally?
A lot of different tests. So, you know, like anything can be scheduling.
Okay.
Law pay.
SharePoint?
Law pay.
Law.
Law pay.
Okay.
Credit card processing.
Okay, that's actually probably really helpful. DocuSign?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Contract cloud.
What is it?
Contract cloud.
Contract Cloud?
Case map.
That actually would be interesting. Case Map? I'll throw out,
That was a very prolific group.
it's good, yeah. I'll throw out Visa Now for immigration.
Teleport.
Hire Right? Hire Right?
Higher, right? That. Should we go? Let's go.
Lexus, yeah, the original.
But mainly Google.
Now it's Google, right? Because I don't want to pay for, I'm not paying for Lexus.
Yeah, exactly.
Deal Proof? I think that's probably a pretty good list, more than I
Yeah,
definitely
I've not
could have
heard
ever
of some
thought
of
of.
these actually.
Yeah, some of these are new. So, all right, that's helpful for me. I mean, you know, it would be education for me to go through and think what all these do. Probably waste of
Yeah. I'm gonna Google all of these.
Yeah, but that's good to hear. We're taking pictures of the ones in front, probably helpful. So I don't know. One of my questions is kind of, what's your pain point? What hurts in the morning when you go into the office that might be able to might help from a legal tech or create some type of solution for it?
Tracking changes in Word.
Dig in.
Tracking changes in Word documents. Track changes.
Track changes. Other than track changes.
I would say a full inbox.
Full inbox. Hold it. Water bottle too. Okay.
Creating an effective dashboard.
To do what? Like
When they
for?
log in, the first thing they see is everything that's going to happen or supposed to happen in cost. So like on project management dashboard.
Legal project management. For big staff.
Even the other way around, for a small staff with very specific practice, some of the larger project management softwares don't, in my experience, haven't worked well for small teams.
Adoption, and then it's adoption is probably a big issue. CRM, I think we've got one CRM solution here tonight. That's, I mean, there's a lot of different companies, especially in-house, probably already have them. Your sales teams are on it. This is whether you are. There's something in the back.
I'm in firm practice and I think the whole entire
Real estate, which still requires notaries. The entire thing is crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. That's, I don't know.
Interoperability.
Can you explain?
None of these things work together. Even if we sign each individual pain point,
Yeah, the integration is, that's one of my biggest adoption challenges. All the ones I work with are great, but I forget about them if I'm not using them, and then trying to get them to connect and communicate in any way is impossible. So that's it, but that's hard for lawyers.
I have one. As in-house counsel, I actually find there's so many lawyers out there, but it's hard to find the right one. A lot of lawyers like to bill themselves as we do litigation, but we also do transactions, and we do this and that. And I never look for generalists. I look for people who are very, very specific, and everyone wants to practice everything. So finding the right attorney at the right price and frankly negotiating the scope of work, right? Because you ask them for a deep product. I don't want you to correct the commas in this, right? And then they bill you $5,000 and they've corrected all the commas. And I'm like, no, I'm not paying you the billable hours to. So that would be, I use those for lawyers. Yes,
Yeah,
so.
I mean, Absolutely, because it's just referrals, like you were saying earlier, just with your colleagues usually they're good or not. Yeah, the transparency and actually in the law firm, you figure it'd be greater, so I think that's probably a pretty good one.
Just kind of a question on that. Who do you refer to? Do you go to word of mouth? Do you go to Martindale? Do you go to Avo? What source are you using to find
It
this?
just depends on what it is. Like right now, we are moving into more states, right, for our real estate closings, and we need to find in the small ones. We use Avo, right? We actually use Meetup, so we find attorneys who are very integrated into like the hard money market in their local community, so that we don't have to explain what we're doing to them. But when it comes to more corporate side stuff or other specialized markets, it can be my network, referrals. I've actually used a bunch of legal marketplaces before. Just wherever they come.
Hope related to this about the in-house attorneys and how you feel that you're perceived by. Sally, you mentioned being told to cut the legal spend by half. Certainly the perception is that the in-house counsel is two things. One, just, hey man, yeah, we got sued, we hired Kirkland and Ellis, I'm sure we're gonna do the best we can, can't really tell how it's gonna go, because who the hell knows the jury, and that infuriates management. And number two, they're the department of, sorry, this thing works in 49 states, but it's possible that in New Hampshire, this might violate one of the rules, so can't do it. I get it's gonna make us $50 million, but nope, can't do it. And I'm curious, is that changing? Like I remember I've been an attorney at companies, but thank God I've never been an in-house attorney. What's your, I'd love to hear from you guys, anybody else in the audience about?
I think that still exists, and I know it still exists mostly because of the clients that we deal with and the clients that I'm negotiating contracts with on the other side, which is a lot of the larger corporations that have established in-house practices, and they can be really difficult. What I see, at least on my end, and kind of the companies that are like my peers or our peers, smaller, is there's a lot less of that. I'm willing to take a lot more risk because the reality is, if something terrible happens, then we're all going to be unemployed anyway. But we're in a startup, so the likelihood that we're going to be employed anyway is probably going to happen, regardless. So I think it's partially your risk level, and then with management, I think with a smaller group, you're part of the management team, and so you're kind of directing them in a lot of ways. And you're not so much just kind of separated at the end of the table. It's like, oh, let's just run it by the lawyer to make sure at the end of the deal, but you're kind of more in at the beginning. So I think it's changing, at least can change with smaller groups and smaller startups, but certainly in the bigger companies that you're running into a brick wall.
So the Atlantic Monthly actually came out with an article, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, and it was about the naysayer in chief, right? Specifically the GC or the CLO. I think a lot of companies do run into this problem. I think a lot of legal departments may run into this problem, and I think it depends on how that legal department approaches the problem, right? If you say no, you can't do that, it's illegal, obviously they're never going to come to you again, and everything is about diplomacy, right? So you have to say, okay, so this is what you want to do, that's illegal. But what is your goal and how can I get you to yes? So I don't see us as necessarily we're the naysayer in chief. I think more forward-thinking in-house counsels, we see as we're like a legal solution architect, right? You tell us your goal, we'll figure out how to get you in the most legal and risk-free manner possible.
I'll give you one kind of quick example about, I think the litmus test for organization is, do they require an NDA? You require an NDA, you're in the no group. You don't, because people understand that everything's not really that complicated. In most, obviously, certain industries, etc. Players.
I have found, I go to a lot of meetings like this, and I have found that, especially with lawyers, and I have a lot of partners, attorneys I deal with all the time. But do you find yourself like think that I don't know kind of want to skirt the whole technology issue in-house, because I don't know it that well. So we're just gonna try to put it underneath the carpet, or, you know. And if you do that, do you ever go outside to find consultants as attorneys and say, I mean, I really need to sit with someone that knows?
And so technology is a fundamental part of our company. If we don't know our own technology, we can't learn. That being said, there are a lot of more seasoned and experienced attorneys who may not be so adopting new technologies, or even staff. It doesn't even have to be the GC or the in-house counsel. It can even be a paralegal, right? And so I think it really is a company culture thing. I think leadership and efficient. We need to be adaptable and really stress that with the staff to make sure that the staff is comfortable adopting new technology.
I'll just chime in too. So we don't do consulting, but we get requests regularly, like, I want to try this new technology, but we don't want to train our lawyers. Can you, find a lawyer that already knows this to do this work? And if it works, they can maybe train our lawyers how to do it. So we are actually have soft partnerships with Ned and Mary and a bunch of other legal tech companies where our attorneys get trained on them and then can just drop it in. You don't have to totally kind of dive in and train people yet, but you can test it out.
Well, wondering if these are the pain points. Is there anything that already exists that addresses maybe for somebody to build?
Well, so for example, for billing, I know there's Serengeti, right? But it is really expensive. It's for the Microsoft legal department camera. I think it's $2,000 a month or something like that. A lot of small legal departments can't afford that. But you can tell me if I'm wrong, because I haven't done I haven't found a Serengeti-like solution for small departments. Oh, okay, so I guess I should talk to you.
Yeah. So there are a couple ways to do that in Clio. One is you can invite your outside counsel to share that matter, and they can build directly into your system in Clio. Or we've had some other instances. You guys are using Clio. Here's the account that I have purchased for you, and I have access to that account as well. So all of your work has to go in here.
That would be awesome. For finding the right for referrals, there's a lot of legal marketplaces, right? I think I've tried a lot of them. I think the question is, which marketplace is right for you, for your specific needs? Have you tried any of that?
I'm pretty much 99% referrals. And it's people, colleagues or law school friends, or that's it. I don't know. It's one of those when you search somebody's name and Outlook comes up or something, it's kind of ignore it.
Well, this is classic, right? I mean, that so much of in-house law, legal practice generally is CYA, right? So okay, well, we hired this guy to handle this matter, and we thought it was a dead. I mean, obviously we were going to win. She was obviously made. I'm not making my list. I'm just saying this how it's perceived. And then we lost it. And tell me again, what website did you find this asshole that lost our case, right? And so it's always going to be.
Yeah, I think that assumes that everything is a part of litigation, or kind of a competitive company type thing, in which basically you're going to look at the same five law firms regardless if you have that budget. But for the day-to-day stuff, for employment agreement or help negotiate partner agreement, that's where you can get somebody.
And or legal. But part of what I do and what we do as a company is actually use we use a system called Netmos, which is something that Apple uses, Best Buy, and we survey these attorneys. And the number of attorneys I've talked to who are terrified at the thought of being surveyed, but is this attorney going to be a good
are they bona fide? Are they going to be able to help me? And it works amazingly well with consumers. Now, this is different because we're talking about small business owners and families by and large. But even on the business front, we've seen our users become more and more sophisticated as, you know, the internet has sort of opened everything up, but in turn, it's, and how I find them is through referrals. And then just being a lawyer myself, vetting them and making sure they actually know what to do.
But if you're the person responsible for finding that lawyer, would you rather go to a site that uses data on their win rates, on feedbacks and surveys from prior customers than like, hey, I golfed with this guy, he might work out? Like,
I mean, are you asking me, or because I would absolutely do two rather than the first one you described?
Why?
Because I don't. Well, number one, I mean, Sally, in the case of the surveys, these are people talking about one-off things. Number one, I don't think there is good data on who's happy. You know, if Wells Fargo gets sued for an employment matter, their in-house people are going to be extremely reluctant to give any kind of actual feedback on a website like that for a major risky matter, and I would be much more likely to get accurate data by calling friends of a friends who are going to tell me what really happened. So, I mean, I hear your point. I don't think it comes down to who you play golf with. I think it comes down to who you know, who you've known for a long time, whose opinion you trust to give you. You're not going to email. You're going to have a conversation about it.
I agree with that 100%. There's no Yelp for lawyers.
It's happening, people.
There
It's
is
in the
Yelp.
works.
There are lawyers on it.
They're working on it.
Who's
It's a
early
good thing.
stages, but it's happening.
Attorney, you know, slap you with a defamation. I feel like that's why.
Oh, it happens to Josh King and Avo on a daily basis. Yeah, they're still in business.
Yeah.
So the first thing you're going to do after you're playing this referral is you're going to hop on the internet and Google that guy.
Yes, that's
So
true.
that's where the data starts coming
Yeah.
in. And what we're seeing is services out there like Premonition Law are starting to dive into court records. To look at arguments about fees, to look at win-loss ratios, to look at subject matter expertise, and they're building this big database of who's the right lawyer for the right price point. And other services are springing up like this. So the data is getting finer and finer. It's just a question of how these sources can we get online to grab it. So the referral.
Maybe we'll take this offline, but I think premonition is extremely problematic.
I agree with you. It's only litigation. It's
And
only
it's-
court records. Yeah.
and-
There's lots of.
And that's, I mean, Cravath, Swain, and Moore is going to show up as nothing, and Kirkland and Ellis are going to show up as nothing, and the guy who's handled 700 defense of mortgage foreclosures is going to show up. I mean, I'm very sympathetic to this. I work for a big data startup. I'm an attorney that got really sick of working at big law firms and all their old boy network BS. I'm just telling you guys, from my experience, I spent a lot of time talking to in-house counsel. This idea that there's this like data out there is there's going to be a ton of challenges, not the least what Amy was talking about people's concern about defamation and otherwise.
So we've done a lot of this, by the way. And what we've realized is that we can't review Yelp style. What we can do is collect data, which we are doing on do people show up on time? Do they call back to the same clients over and over? What is their personality type? What's their win rate? What's the feedback that their references and their customers say about them? And you aggregate it in a way that is in sum and not calling out any one person. And that's the future. So again, this is basic stuff. There's nothing right now that is a single source of the truth that is trustworthy. But this is why the legal tech entrepreneurs in the room exist. We are building it, and it will happen. You should be early adopters and at least consider it.
I'm building it
As
too.
one
Well,
data
okay,
point.
I'm taking over this conversation.
Well, I just wanted to comment that in the SaaS industry, you have one metric that restore. So would you, and apologies, I'm over here trying to take pictures and do stuff, so if someone's already said this, but like, would you recommend this lawyer to somebody else? So if you could just have it, it's like, you could, somebody build that into, I don't know.
There's so, and listen to all of this, but there are so many companies out there that are taking your action, making okay, so the large, corporate, well, large law firms, law firms are hiring marketing people just to find negative comments about their attorneys and wipe them off somehow, some way, or track everybody from seeing those comments. So I don't see a Yelp kind of thing for attorneys being.
I think it will. It just needs to be at scale. Because we've done we've surveyed for just the attorneys that we work with, over 20,000 surveys. When you get into that sort of realm, you start seeing patterns, you start seeing things, and some of the items that Mary raised are actually the most important. A whole lot of time. Pretty pleasant. A lot of it, I hate to say it, but some of it is legal advice, and there's a lot of attorneys who give good legal advice, despite what our reputation might be. But ultimately, who do you want to actually work with? You want somebody who will call you back. I know both in my current job and then when I was GC, I required people to call me back all the time. And you know, everybody has an excuse, right? And sometimes it's bona fide, but a lot of times it's not. There's a lot of bad lawyers out there, and it's oftentimes not about the quality of their legal advice. It's just because they have horrible customer service. And that is something that you can track. And it is something that, you know, if you're looking at one or two, then obviously it's not going to be a realistic scale. But if you're looking at en masse, it does.
Well, and there's a wealth of data that we're not considering as well, and that's the billing and performance rates. And they're pulling, tens of thousands of bills, like monthly, and being able to compare firms based on performance and their billing. So, and in-house counsel at larger corporations are relying on this data. So it's a question of when does it scale down into the smaller companies?
I think that maybe the solution at some point is to get all the metrics and put them together with some type of country club score. But and there's probably a way analytically to do that. I mean, half jokingly, but seriously, where you can get those referrals from trusted people and then bring that into technology that gets you kind of the result of finding the right attorney. Maybe that's the new technology that should come out of this. But let's see, good discussion. Let's one more on
the concept's not really that new. We've had already a couple doing AV ratings based on other judges, attorneys, etc. You're just changing the focal point. You're just changing the crowd that's doing the evaluation. So the model exists. It's sort of like paper discovery turned into electronic. Same things, just doing it from different.
Does anybody use Markdown anymore?
Nobody does. That's it. Nobody picked up that part, but it's already something that was done.
Right.
So it's like turning it into Uber instead of a taxi service.
I mean, we still look at Markdown, we also look at Alo, I've got a team of people who are basically vetting lawyers every day. And it can be everything from, it's like a checklist, and there's different things, and that's one of them. So we don't just look at one thing, and a big item is typical as an acronym. And, it's not for everybody, and that is with a lawyer. I don't want them to hold that into backwards. I don't want them to wait a week, 2 weeks, or, take them down the garden path.
So let's make Martindale sexy somehow. Get widespread adoption. So with adoption, so what do you mean from a lawyer's perspective? We talked a little bit about like, what drives adoption, or what some of these legal technologies need in order to be adopted, and what do we think?
The cases, flower uses, text survey, gaining momentum.
Well, law school, right? So we all used to use Lexis because the Lexis guy gave us subscriptions or $1 a year, and then we got trained on it and used it, and now. But for a long time, that was it. So
I actually have a question, which is, I think if you're some huge company with you have a lot of leeway to go in, maybe negotiate fees, flat fees, alternative fee arrangements. You have a lot of leverage to make such demands. If you are a very small in-house legal department, maybe just one or two people, maybe your company is a startup, right? Like, do you feel like you have a lot of leverage to demand this of law firms that you use?
Because I was was used to asking it before I was at the startup. I was at a larger company. It was kind of part of the conversation. So, and you ask for it, oftentimes you get it. Doesn't mean it's a meaningful discount, but it can happen. I think that's just kind of what you establish it.
Kind of in line with that, sorry, but let startups use your name. We work with 14 and law 200 firms, and we use 2 of their names. They negotiate that into the contract that we cannot talk about. If you are using something, allow yourself to be promoted from the startups because it will facilitate additional adoption.
So we're finding a lot of our in-house customers are being, so it's not the in-house saying we need to upgrade. It's the rest of our company is 2015, why aren't you up here with us?
Sell doesn't cut it, you mean?
Yeah.
What else can we do? Well, I have one. Me and Aria, we run the LA Legal Hackers Meetup, and we run that group and through a lot of events to try and facilitate discussion. We have legal hackers in general has been getting a lot of press, a lot of speaking opportunities to try and spread the message. So I think that's a good forum.
Not a plug, though.
No, not a plug at all. But hashtag.
You'll have to sit down if you don't put the ball block.
I'm sorry?
You'll have to sit down if you don't put the ball block.
Oh, yes, of course. And then there's also
Also collaboration with other, they have LA Bar, we also have LACA, with the Legal Association, and collaborating with them for events.
What about integration? We talked about that over here somewhere, but having some of these kind of work together. So you've got your CRM, so you've got Salesforce that syncs with Dropbox and DocuSign, and it's kind of integrated so they kind of build off each other.
We do that.
It's a tech, right? So it's a tech play on making it simple. So you've got one dashboard maybe. So you log in and you say your inbox, and you see your inbox. You build a dashboard for lawyers that has prioritizes maybe your inbox with all the other software services that you have.
Working on it.
Okay. There it is.
I would say commit to trying new things. Lawyers tend to be the fast followers, but slow leaders. Actually trying new things are perfect. And if you're in a big company or a big firm, designate someone to try stuff out. Your lawyers or the people there will be really excited about it, especially with a younger person. But try something and get to it.
Our employees refer to it as Tinder for lawyers.
It's not building.
Pretty much what it is.
That was your other tagline. We used to be the e-department for lawyers and as our products. Every 10 companies looking left and right, it's great A/B testing. So that's hilarious.
Anyone else have anything to add?
I think we're right on the nose.
I think the consumer software out there that we're all using is really what's going to drive adoption of offerings. Everybody has the apps on their phone that you like. Everybody has their own Dropbox account. Everybody uses Facebook. And you're coming to expect the same aesthetics, ease of use, and the rest of your life. And the client can be demanding it, and as counsel can be demanding it, and that's just rising up into the legal technology.
Okay, well, thank you both so much, and thank you all for coming. We're not throwing you out, but there's still more food and wine. I'm going to take a picture of that. We had a different list that we came up with when we did a similar event in New York, led by a couple of AIG and then Life in-house counsel. Although they made it very clear they were not representing either of those companies. They were saying, yeah, I love shockingly diverse insurance company. So,
I represent whatever,
whatever
I said.
take on it, but it's interesting. I think we all have our work cut out for us, and part of what we want to do with Evolve Law is try to get momentum behind the idea of lawyers taking that leap. Not the leap to Tinder, but the leap to making it great. I think actually there was a talk at the like something again. And there is, yeah.